how long has it been since we've seen any real meaningful changes to Territory War? It is one of the only big PvP game modes in this game. It is the only way that guilds really have any sort of competitive interaction with one another, and it has been completely unchanged basically since the day it came out. Let's talk about Territory Wars and how can we fix this game mode? What can we do? Or what can CG do to get us interested in it? So I want to talk just a little bit, first of all, about what the actual problem is with this game. But before we do go too deeply into Territory Wars and all of the big snafus with it, let me just remind you, ladies and gentlemen, a couple of days ago I put out a video. Thank you for all watching that. And in that video, I was doing a giveaway for some shards for Captain Silvo, the latest marquee character to come to this game. I will be picking 5 winners out of the pool of people that submitted to that subscribed to the channel in the comment section, all that good business. I'll be picking them out in this video, so check back at the end and you will see who has won for that. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you. Territory War has not changed, and that's a big issue. This is the Territory War map on Jakku. It is reminiscent of the 10-year anniversary of The Force Awakens. This is the battlefield of Jakku. This is where we get first introduced to Rey #Skywalker, let it be known. And the map has not changed in 10 years, basically. I know this game hasn't even been around that long, but this map is older than the game. Let that sink in. Let that sink in for a minute. So, whilst I believe that the whole idea of the Territory War map is probably the least significant impact to the game mode itself. Like, who cares where we actually play? Ultimately, I mean, if you look at, it's the same thing when you look at Grand Arena, right? If you check out Grand Arena and you look at the Grand Arena setup, this has never changed, realistically speaking. Sure, you get more characters per zone, but it still is just like, it's clearly like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duelist table where player A is on the left and player B is on the right, and they face off against each other with their holotables. I get it, that's part of the game, right? But would it really, let's get back over here to the Territory War map, would it really kill CG to just change this? Do you know what I mean? I would much rather see a setup for this that is more reminiscent of, say, territory battles, you know? Give us a big open map like the Territory Battles Rise of the Empire map, where we've got literally a galaxy of systems, right? We've got individual planets, and you can go down and there are battle zones on that. Give us that setup for Territory War. You know, give us some sort of differences in zones and stuff. I know that when we go into the battle, it's not like all the battles are literally on Jakku. You will go to different zones, and it just doesn't make sense, thematically speaking. Moreover, the actual zones themselves, they don't do anything. Do you know what I mean? It's just, here we go, we'll set 50 teams. Here we go, we'll set 50 teams. Here we go, we'll set fleet. We'll set fleet and teams. And capturing these zones does nothing outside of giving us points. There's no strategic advantage per se from capturing and defeating those zones. It's just a case of, this is a place to place squads, this is a place to place fleet. Go at it until somebody wins the most banners. It's uninspired. And that was okay when the game mode first came out, because that's all we had. And we had no other frame of reference, and it was just a case of, let's have an environment in which we can have a PvP interaction, right? Let's have a battlefield where we can just face off against other guilds that are roughly within our GP ranges. However, the game has matured. The game is coming up to 10 years old. We need to have something that's got a little bit more meat on the bones than just this. Now, CG did try to do a little bit of mixing and matching in this. Do you remember the days? Well, perhaps you weren't even around, but there was a time where they did some experimentation, and we had a couple of things. Notably, we had stuff like a banned list where certain characters of certain teams were not allowed to be played, and I hated that system with a burning passion, because that was a case of, oh, you've just unlocked Jedi Knight Revan. Okay, you can't use Jedi Knight Revan. You could use Bastila and Jolee. It's like, oh, a CLS team, but you can't use Han Solo. It's like, it kind of destroys teams. I don't like the idea of vetoing teams or units. I don't think that works. There were other times when they tried to do some other changes to it, such as they introduced bonuses for certain characters at certain times. Like, there was a moment where Mace Windu was like the ultimate Sith killer. he had such massive bonuses that he was soloing Treya teams and stuff like that. Granted, this is way back when, guys. This is in the olden days when dinosaurs roamed the earth in Galaxy of Heroes, and we had crazy things like that. We had crazy bonuses for Jawas and stuff like that. It was wild. It was a crazy time. It was kind of fun. But that sort of environment has kind of now been replicated by the introduction of datacrons. Datacrons essentially emulate that, with player input and player investment into those datacrons to make those mismatches, you know, to make those teams that wouldn't normally perform at quite that level be uplifted. So that's kind of been an answer for not just Territory War, but GAC as well. So really, the problem is with the base game mode itself. It's just dull, it's boring. There are a number of issues, of course, that sit outside of what is the setup, what is the map, what is the actual game mode. So for example, if we were to look at the brackets over here, these GP brackets are supposed to be indicative now of the sort of guild matchups you should be facing and the rewards that you will earn for being in that active GP. And what active GP means is, out of everybody in your guild who has signed up, how much total GP is that? And the problem with this is, of course, is it creates a barrier to entry that shouldn't really exist, for one. Like, realistically, why should you be capped at the GP? Why is having a bigger GP just automatically meaning that's the only thing that qualifies you for better rewards? It seems kind of backwards, right? You should be rewarded for winning, and you should be, you know, rewarded for investing in your roster, obviously, but it should be predominantly focused on how well you're doing. All we have to do is look at the GAC setup and think, okay, we've already got a system in place now that essentially emulates that. We have leaderboards, we have leagues and divisions that automatically do that sort of thing for us. Look, we've got Kyber, we've got Erodium, we've got Chromium, Bronzium. Your GP, to a certain degree, is completely irrelevant in this, right? You can have 12 million GP and be in Carbonite if you really, really didn't try, right? We need to introduce, well, we don't need to. I would rather see a league and division system being introduced for Territory Wars in the exact same way that we have it for GAC. You know, make the competition matter again, make people get a little bit more competitive again. Because in GAC, granted, in divisions and leagues below sort of Kyber, it's a little bit harder because there is that mismatch of people that sign up and don't really want to actually engage. But, you know, having this Kyber, the leagues and division system being introduced into Territory Wars should make for more competitive environments and should make people want to try and climb and perform well. And should hopefully get, you know, a little bit more engagement across the board and a new way to introduce the reward system. You would be rewarded based on what division of what league are you in. Let's scale those rewards up. Currently, the system is just based on pure GP, and it is incredibly outdated. Right now, the way we're looking at it over here is you need the top reward is an active bracket of 380 million GP. Now, my guild alone has got 694 million GP right now, and we are currently down some players that are about to come in for this new raid, so it's going to jump up a little bit for us. But it just seems completely bonkers that in this day and age, that's supposed to be like the top tier. This is the equivalent of Kyber 1 being full of like 8 million GP accounts instead of the people at 14 million GP are wondering, where am I supposed to be facing now? You know, like this is such a small ceiling right now that it really should be upped. But again, if we were to go into a league and division system, this reward structure would become redundant and they would have to think of a new way of doing it. And that's the second thing, really, is the rewards are a little bit on the lackluster side. Truth be told, the rewards they're not commensurate with the amount of effort that you have to put in to perform well, you know? Like 50 battles per sector across everybody, you know, everybody has to try and get through as much of the board, and you win the match, you get 3 Zeta mats, and you're like, okay, well 3 Zeta mats is alright, I have 322. The only thing that's really worth stuff is like your droid brains and your aero mags. And it's not a whole lot of them, truth be told. And you get some, you know, it's the only place that you can get your Mark III conversion materials for datacrons. But really, this is just rewarding you for stuff that you're going to put back into your GAC teams anyway. So it feels like the reward structure really does need to be updated just a little bit. I feel like they need to introduce a league and division setup as well as all the other stuff that we need to do. Because like I said, this setup, this structure is just uninspired at this point. What I would like to see CG bring into this game mode is to make it far more a tactical and engaging experience, and make it a game mode that everybody can try and access and engage with at their own pace. Right now, when you set up your offensive and defensive setups, we are at the mercy, essentially, of everybody in the guild going in and manually setting those teams. We have to have them log in that 24-hour period. They have to set their defenses. At some ranges, in some guilds, it's not really a problem. People can go free for all and just set whatever they want on defense and take whatever they want on offense. At the higher tiers, the bigger the guild, it becomes a lot more regimented. You'll have 50 teams of one type of team, 50 teams of another type of teams, and there'll be specific comps, sometimes with specific loadouts, specific modding, with a specific datacron, right? And you're dependent on everybody adhering to that. And once they're set, they can't be undone. Having a little bit more flexibility about how we set and manage defenses, so that maybe officers or guild leaders can go in and edit what people have put in, either take them off defense so that they can reset them, or my preference would be give officers the capability to set teams on behalf of all guild members so that they can set up templates. You could set up an entire template for a war and you could load it in so that people don't have to go, oh, I've only got 7.5 minutes to go ahead and put in my defense. I forgot to do it. I've been busy. Oh, I couldn't access the game because the game servers were down for some reason. There is an option there for officers to be like, okay, this is our defensive setup. Let's set it all down. Go ham, right? The other side of it that cuts into people's time is the fact when it comes to the offensive stages, in order for us to attack effectively, we have to clear the front walls. Now, granted, this does adopt an element of strategy to Territory Wars, right? You have to think about, oh, okay, I've got 50 teams of, I don't know, Slacker with the Raycron up here, and down here we've got JMK Cat Ezra with the Hodacron, right? And you're like, well, we need to think about how do we clear through these teams? What teams do we need to potentially save for the back wall, right? So it adds an element of, oh, what do I have to do? Kind of like in GAC, where you're like, you need to reveal the back wall. What teams do you try and save for that back wall? What do you think your opponent has placed back there? What teams do you still need? Can you afford to lose? And what teams do you absolutely have to hold on to? Now, whilst I do like that, unfortunately, it does get in the way of having everybody be able to have the opportunity to engage in Territory Wars effectively. What I would like to have is just a little bit more freedom about what zones you can attack and when. If this was Territorial, I don't really want it to be like this. I would much rather this be on the scale of Rise of the Empire, where we're going out to whole planets. You know, go out to whole planets, you can dive into planets, you can fight over control of individual planets. Maybe those individual planets give bonuses to the guild that controls the planet, you know, that sort of thing, right? And then you could have all your starships, they could be out in the outer galaxy creating blockades or that sort of thing, you know, have it actually interact like a proper war across an entire galaxy system. That would be so much cooler. And like I said, if you control certain areas, maybe you get bonuses. Say, for example, you control Geonosis, you have bonuses to your droids and your clones or something like that. You know what I mean? Have a little bit of flavor with it. But what I would like to be able to do is have a little bit of freedom of choice. And the reason I say this is this game is a global game. I live in the UK, in case you can't tell by the accent, and half of my guild are in America, and some people are in Germany, and, you know, like, we have people from all over, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. And time zones are a real thing. So when this attack phase goes live, there might be 3 or 4 hours in which I can get an attack in before I'm going to bed. And if we can't clear through a zone, and half of the people in America are still at work, we can't take down entire walls by ourselves, not at the difficulty we're at. We sometimes need everybody has one counter to a particular team. If you're beholden at waiting for people to come home from work or to wake up in order to clear a zone, it creates a lot of stagnation in the game mode, and people don't feel like that they can engage with it at their own pace. So we need a structure in place that lets players engage when they have the time to engage, right? I'm not saying it doesn't have to be coordinated, it can still be coordinated, but having a little bit more individuality around that time that you can attack would be key. I don't know what the solution is to that. Sure, we could have every zone open to attack right at the start. Like I said, that does unfortunately leave us a little bit exposed in terms of strategy. You'll be able to see the whole defensive section. That's not that great. Alternatively, you could have essentially Territory Wars maybe would be broken down into almost individual GAC battles. So it's your own time that you're going in, right? You would be paired up maybe with one other member of the enemy guild, or maybe there's like a squadron of 5 of you in your squadron that are taking on individual units, and you can just go through at your own pace. So like the scale is smaller so that you're able to engage at a faster pace. So you're not there stuck waiting for 3 hours because such and such hasn't used their counter to slack array and you need to clear this wall. You know what I get? Being able to attack when you have the time to attack, give players that freedom and agency to actually engage the game when they have the time, would be very useful at getting people involved in this again. Then I would like to see something that gives us a little bit more individuality from a defensive perspective. Let's not just have one set of defenses where you can only have your characters here and here and only have your fleets here. Give us different shapes and sizes and setups that we can adopt in order to add strategy that way. So maybe you've got your fleet at the front, maybe it's a section of one zone, maybe it's 3 zones at the top and it goes into one in the middle and all this sort of thing. Have some way to express your defense in different ways. Now, I'm not saying have complete carte blanche, because I think everybody should be on an equal playing field when it comes to setting up your offensive and defensive strategies from the base standpoint. Nobody should have an advantage over, oh, I've got a defensive shape that you don't have, therefore I've got a massive advantage. It should be everybody's on an equal playing field in terms of that. The only thing that should be separating you is your skill and your investments in your roster and your team strategies and all that sort of thing, right? So give us a little bit more creative freedom when it comes to this sort of thing. Give us a few options so it's not always the same. I think that if we did go into more of a galaxy-based setup, it would look just so much cooler. It would look so much more engaging. And I very much feel like if we had zones that actually had a strategic benefit to them, so like I was saying, maybe if you're on Camino, that would have bonuses for clones and clone troopers and that sort of business, or I don't know, something else. Maybe it has a bonus for Starkiller as a little nod to him, right? And then maybe on Geonosis it gives you bonuses for Geos and Clone Troopers and Galactic Republic Jedi or something like that, you know? Controlling those areas, giving bonuses to your teams or even across multiple planets and that sort of thing. Being able to, I don't know, control Mustafar, for example, gives bonuses to Sith or gives bonuses to Lord Vader and Darkside Clone Troopers and stuff like that. Give a little bit of flavor that has an element of strategy to it as well, so that if you have invested in certain things, or if you place teams in the correct areas, or if you're fighting for dominance over certain areas, because there are synergies with teams and datacrons that might be able to enhance those abilities, that would be kind of fun. So it feels like you're actually fighting over different territories in this game mode to create a competitive advantage. Give us some strategies that will help us fight against each other. I think that would be really cool. Now, of course, you would have to decide, how do you go about capturing these planets? Do both people start that territory war? Do both guilds? Or maybe it's more than one guild. Maybe there are multiple guilds. Maybe it's 3 guilds that are facing off in a free-for-all against each other, and it's whoever's got the most territories at the end wins, or controlling territories for a certain amount of time gives you additional banners. I'm not sure what the nuances of how it could look like, but I know that there are ways to make this a fresh game mode. And I do hope that it is something that's addressed next year. I mean, it would be great if it could be sorted this year, but we're running out of year. So what I really am hoping for, more than anything else, is that CG takes a real candid look at Territory Wars and makes a deliberate focus to try and improve this game mode. It's the only guild PvP-based game mode that we have. Let's put a little bit of thought, let's put a little bit of love, revamp the laddering system for it to make it a little bit more like GAC, give us some updated rewards that are actually nice and attainable and are valuable to the players, and just overhaul the actual gameplay to make it fun, make it engaging, change things up so that it's more fun and accessible to all players, and then give ourselves the capability to our officers and leaders a lot more control about the defensive setup. Let them be able to control what gets set where, who has to set it, let them edit defenses, let them do all that good stuff. It might be abused, but it just comes down to Be careful who you choose as your officers and leaders, I guess. All right, so before we go, we do have to pick some winners of our Captain Silvo shards. Let's head over to my comment section of my previous video. And our first winner of the day is going out to Orbs. Orbs, thank you so much. Ally code over there. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to go send that over to Mr. Meathead over here. Let's go find another one. We're getting 5 winners today. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Ravnatho over here. Condolences to the missus. Thank you kindly, good sir. You are going to be another winner of some Captain Silvo shards. Who else we got over here? Who else have we got over here? Next up, we're going to get Antonio Matos 21 over here. Thank you kindly, good sir. You too are going to get yourself some Captain Silvo shards. We've got 2 winners left in the box over here. Let's go down. Over here, Kill Bill 20,006, another winner for us. And one final winner is going to be me. No, I'm not going to give myself shards. Don't be silly, guys. That would be rather foolish of me, wouldn't it? That would be rather foolish of me. And finally, oh, here we go. Miguel Perez over here. Miguel. Congratulations, good sir. Thank you, everybody, for entering into that competition. I am going to get those numbers over to Mr. Meathead himself, and hopefully be able to process those very, very shortly. I will see you all in the very next video. Peace out. May the Force be with you.